Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right, well, we are excited to have a special guest on the podcast today, and it is Jeff Young coming to us from Lake Tippecanoe outside of Indianapolis. Jeff, it is great to have you on, and we are happy to have you here.
Well, thanks so much for having me, both Alex and Dustin. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Absolutely. And Dustin, looking fresh as always. I love it. Your Han Solo never disappoints. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the shout out to Han Solo. It's interesting because lots of people don't know who this is. And if you don't know who this is, it's the weirdest backdrop ever. So I appreciate you calling that out here at the top of the podcast.
Excellent. Yeah, we have a consultant that we work with, and we always give her a hard time because she hasn't seen any Star Wars ever. And so one of her homework assignments for us is before our engagement is complete that she must watch one of the Star Wars episodes. So you can't go wrong with the Han Solo and the Carbonite right there. I love it. So Jeff, we really want the focus to be on you, not Han Solo. And we're glad to have you on because you've started a new venture, and the three of us go back a couple years now when we're at an old event that is no longer around, and I actually met on the golf course. Got a little hectic out there with Dustin's foursome behind us, but we pulled through and we had a good time out there. But since that event and more recently, you guys have started a new group, and what I'd like to do is just give you a chance to tell us what's going on, what's new, and how is this group different than what you've done in the past. And how are you adding value to these IT leaders out here?
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. Thanks for asking. So the new company is called the Confer Group, and the Confer Group has been now in existence almost a month. We're very excited about starting this new company. Myself, I am a longtime IT executive. I was at Haynes International in Indiana here for 39 years, serving majority of that as the Chief Information Officer and Vice President. And the thing is, I did retire a couple of years ago, and I'm happy that I've completed that part of my career. At the same time, I've had so much time to reflect on how I did my job, things I did well, things I did poorly, and the more things you make mistakes at, the more of an expert you become, I believe. So, for me to work with some others and establish this company called the Confer Group, our goal here is just to create a community for IT executives to help them do their jobs. And we're really excited to get this community built and get started.
Absolutely. And we're excited to have you on and talk about more about the group. So helping IT leaders, helping executives, and even their second in commands. What does that look like? What sort of programs do you have going? What is this group? How do they interact with each other? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure, happy to. The thing is, every company has an IT executive, and every company has just one, and it's a lonely position to some degree. You have colleagues, but the colleagues are other vice presidents of the company, for example. So to be able to have someone that's in a like position as you to bounce ideas off of, to learn from, is very powerful. So what we're trying to do is we're going to create a community that will give IT execs an opportunity to connect and engage with each other. And more importantly, we want to also include their top lieutenants, if you will, because the same thing that I just described that was true for me in my role was true for my operations manager or my security officer. So really three other areas: infrastructure and operations, applications and programming, and security. Those three areas also have leads in organizations that they are also islands in their companies. So we want to really create four different communities in one, and allow these communities to engage with each other, to learn from each other, and then we also will help connect them to solutions as appropriate. So I can talk a little bit about the roadmaps, but that's really going to be our key to know how and when to connect people.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, it is lonely being at the top. You've experienced it firsthand. It sounds like you can hear your passion for that coming through just I know from your previous role and from this role of being able to connect those people. Um, what I find is that like if you have a good IT staff, they've been at the company for so long, so every time they're doing something new, it's their first time doing it.
Right.
So, you're moving to the cloud. It's like, hey, we've all been at this company for the past 7 years. How do we move to the cloud? Nobody did it at their last company. We've all been here too long. So technology is changing so quick. I love that vision of being able to get peers at the same level to be able to have candid conversations. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're building out that community? Like, what are the mechanics of that? What does that look like? Hey, I want to build a community. What does that mean?
Right. So over the years, I have a lot of connections, that I've met through, through projects I've done and just through different things that I've attended. But the thing is, what we want to do is bring these executives into our community one at a time. And I'm meeting with every one of these executives and asking them if they know of colleagues in their community or in their industry that would also benefit from this type of interactive community. But also, I'm asking them, what are you involved in? What are you doing right now? Because we need to understand not only who these executives are, but we want to understand the roadmaps. And the reason for that is, if I get 10 executives that are all very interested in, in collaboration tools, then I know those are people that will want to talk to solution providers that have something in that area, or more importantly, talk to each other about doing that. And the thing is, everyone is in different phases of every area. If you talk roadmaps with any IT executive, they've all been involved in all facets of IT in some way, shape, or form, whether it's disaster recovery, ERPs, business intelligence, but they're all at a different place on the curve, right? So they're either looking for solutions or they've just got finished implementing a solution or anywhere in the middle. So these folks all have something to add to the conversation. And everybody is very interested in hearing, no matter where you're at in that phase, because you can reflect on things you've done or you can learn about things coming up. So we will use these roadmaps and these conversations to help us know when's the right time to involve executives and their reports, if you will, and also to know which of our partners, which we will have several solution partners, and these solution partners will know when to have the solution partners reach out to these executives, which is a lot better than cold calling when the timing's wrong.
Right. So if I have a lunch today with an IT executive, if I want to make an introduction to you, what do I tell them? What do I tell them the first step would be? What is kind of the onboarding process look like? And then what does it look like once they're a part of this community?
Right. So right now, we obviously have our website, theconfergroup.com, set up. We actually have a private LinkedIn group also established. So we would invite that person to our private LinkedIn group. And this private group actually is intended to be for executives only. We're not going to have solution providers there, because this is a place where execs can go out and, ask for help from each other. We don't want it to turn into, a location where, solution providers could cold call from. So it's going to be execs only. They will meet with me and also, provide me the roadmap information that my other colleagues in the Confer group that helped me, start up this company are working to put together our CRM and our database and have all this information together. And then we would just ask them to keep an eye on events we have coming up. We have 4 series already set that are going to be starting up, and we'll be doing other workshops and roundtables and access and participate in studies, for example. We have a study running right now with the Hackett Group, and they've invited our community to participate in that study on innovation. And then they would be able to participate in the webinar to hear the results of those type studies. So we're going to have several things upcoming, and we want people to get involved with us when they want to for topics that are important to them. For example, May 11th, we're starting a series on business intelligence. And when I say a series, what we're going to do is we're going to get a group of like thinking IT executives that are interested in business intelligence. And we're not going to talk about which tool to buy. We're not going to talk about whether to have it in the cloud. We're not going to talk any of the technical details. We're going to be talking in a 4-part series, meeting once a month for 4 months with this group of IT executives. And we're going to talk about how to know when to purchase a new business intelligence tool, or if you need to buy one. And if you do, how is your data ready? How do you get your data prepared? How do you train your users to get buy-in for this? And how do you follow up in the future? So we're going to be having these discussions at 10,000 feet with a subject matter expert, and then of course with participation from everybody there. So the thing that if you tell people about us, just tell them, we're building a community for IT executives that will be an opportunity for them to, not only, connect with other IT, engage with other IT individuals like thinking people, but also to deep dive into solutions when it's appropriate time for them to do so.
Nice.
So far, so good. We've had lots of interest so far. I've gotten a lot of thank yous for us as a group setting this up. And I got to tell you, my team is incredible. The 4 of us that are the founders of the Confer Group, I'm proud of our entire team, and I know we're going to do well.
I love the idea that it's almost like it's starting grassroots style, right? You're going to your network of executives that you already know. You've been a CIO for many years, and you've built out this great network. And it's not, hey, we're going to blast every CIO in America and have them join this group. It's very one-on-one. It feels very consultative, boutique-y, white glove type of group where you don't want a million people flooding in at once. You really want it to add a lot of value for these executives. And Dustin and I had the pleasure of, sitting in on one of your ERP series. And I thought it was great because what I found was that it wasn't just someone up there giving a speech talking about whatever product A they should buy that a lot of these vendors that we work with do. It was more, hey, we're talking about a certain subject and everyone's participating, and you really learn from each other. And like you said, if an IT executive or their second in command are very isolated on an island in their organization, well, now they have this community where they're not isolated. They have peers they can lean on. And like Dustin said, they might only do a UCaaS project once in their career, twice in their career, moving from prem to the cloud, where now they're talking with 20 people and maybe half of them have already done it, and they can really learn a lot from it. So I think it's a really cool spot to be in. And it's exciting to see you grow this group. And we know your other founders are just top-notch professionals when it comes to that. So it's good to see.
Yeah, it's been fun so far, and I know it's going to be. And you're right, Alex. We want to build. We're not trying to get 5,000 IT executives into a private LinkedIn group. We want to create something more intimate than that. So, we're hoping right now we're on a cadence to add 40 executives to this group every month, and by the time this group gets to 500 to 600 strong, it'll be a very solid group. So I'm excited for that. And the topics, where we go is going to be up to the group. We will listen and let these IT executives help us. We have these series coming up on business intelligence and disaster recovery and ERP and cybersecurity, but we will move forward then with cloud, with collaboration tools, RPA, soft skills even. I want to take this wherever our community wants to take it. And it's interesting because one of the things I did this for so many years that the one thing I find interesting when I mention business intelligence, the reason that we're going to go to business intelligence next is no matter where anybody is, any company, they still have an interest in business intelligence. And why? Because they just don't feel like they've picked the right tool or got it implemented the right way. And it just seems to be something, well, just like disaster recovery security, these things don't end. It's not a topic that you pick up, do a project and don't think about for 10 years. Communications is the same way, right? It's constantly evolving. This job never ends. I guess that's why I finally had to just retire from it. So I thought I'd wait till I got everything done, but you can't ever finish running an IT group.
Right.
The job never ends. So these conversations are legit and pertinent to everyone, again, no matter where they are on the curve.
What type of CIOs, high-level executives in IT are going to find the most value from your type of a group? Or from your group specifically?
Yeah, we aren't, we're by design not setting any parameters as far as size of company or, amount of revenue or industry. Right now, I guess, the focus is domestic at this point. I feel like a domestic approach is important, but coast to coast. Um, I'm not worried about industry because I'll tell you one of the examples that actually led to the formation of the Confer Group is I had have a friend that's a CIO at another company that is a completely different industry than the industry that I was in when we met. And we put our operations managers together and introduced them. Why? Because we got so much value out of knowing each other. We thought, our direct reports would get value out of knowing each other as well. And these two managers from two completely different industries and companies got together and did demos together with security solutions and cloud solutions. And they loved working together. Why? They didn't have somebody else like them. They got to hear how the other person asked questions, how the solution would maybe impact their industry versus our industry. And there was so much power in that it just doesn't matter. In a lot of categories, when you come to IT, it just doesn't matter if you make a widget or sell a widget or you're a services company. The same challenges are there for everybody, and to have people that you can share that with is incredible. So the dynamics of these kind of introductions and the opportunities of these community, you can tell. I think you can tell from me. This is what I want to do. That this is what I spent all those years doing what I did so that I could do this. And I'm very fortunate to be in a position in my life to be able to step back and find a group of people that help put together this company to be able to give back. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. What I think is so great is that, you're retired from being a, corporate CIO, and you have all this knowledge base that you've gathered over, 25, 30 years of being in IT. And it'd be such a waste just to set off into the sunset, toss an fishing line over at the lake house right there and just letting it sit there and not being able to share that with up and coming generation, other leaders that could definitely glean information off of it. And what I found interesting is, we talked about, BI being very big, and you talked about ERP and all these other projects. What I find is like the overarching theme is that no matter what type of project you have, there's change management. There's how do we implement this with the other departments involved. We've been doing this podcast for a little bit now, interviewing a lot of people in customer success, customer experience, and we always talk about their tech stack. Like, well, we use a lot of data. We're bringing in Power BI to look at data from all these other areas of their operations to figure out what's happening and why is it happening, right? And so, how do you see cross collaboration with other departments unfolding as the IT executives get into these other projects?
I want to make sure I answer you correctly. So I need you to ask me that one more time.
So essentially, how does an IT executive effectively, collaborate with other departments to make change?
We actually have a session that will be specific to change management in the ERP series. And again, that ERP series will be restarting in the July timeframe. The key to that process is involvement, honestly. And a good IT executive knows that the involvement of the key individuals, the key departments across the company is critical. You can't be successful if you don't understand their end goals, if you don't understand what they're trying to accomplish, what data they need from each other and for themselves, and how to answer questions that come up on the phone. And it's just very important for that IT exec to surround themselves with the key people across the company, because they have to work together. I would never have, in a project of any size that crosses the entire organization, the least important person to be on that project was the IT person. And not that they weren't important, but the IT person is going to be able to implement whatever needs to be implemented. But you have to understand the goals of the organization. You have to understand where it's heading and the data needed. So I always would try to surround myself with the key people from the other departments first. And then IT would take a back seat and figure out how to implement what they needed. So, and it's so easy now because, there's so much better tools. A lot of things were forced onto us in the last year. Other tools that maybe people hadn't chose to engage with yet, but these tools and collaborative tools that are out there allow this to happen very easily anymore, which is very nice, especially when you're at multiple sites.
Yeah. Well, nowadays we're at multiple sites with work from home for so many organizations. I mean, you have a great pulse on the market and where these other companies are at. Like, how have you seen the companies handle like the work from home transition, right? Obviously there's a lot of people that were on-prem trying to figure out, well, how do I VPN back into the phone system, things like that. Like, how have you seen that change over the past year and with some of the executives that you've talked with?
It's been interesting because the answer to this is all over the board.
Yeah.
There were some executives that, IT groups that had put tools in place already that were there, and maybe they were there, but yet not really adopted, like I was just mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I know companies that had contracted to put Microsoft Teams in, 6 months before the pandemic and before everybody was sent home. And I'm sure the next challenge for that was, how am I going to get our users to start using Teams? Well, then it turned out that without Teams, they couldn't do their job. So some people had bought the tools and just were trying to figure out how to get them deployed. And now this made implementation easy for them. Others had to go out and react quickly. And, maybe they didn't even have laptops in place and they had to figure out how to scramble. I heard about companies that actually, had people, taking their desktop computers home. And then, boy, the big worry there was I just lost inside my four walls security. Firewalls became not meaningless, but the use of a firewall and what it was for was way different because all of a sudden all of your users were everywhere, dispersed throughout the county, if you will. So, it was an opportunity for people to buy some better tools and they had to do that or just make better use of their tools. And now, of course, what's happening, like I said, these collaboration tools have helped companies, learn to talk together. People that have multiple divisions now, they're routinely having meetings together, and that's not going to change as people head back in the office. And of course, we know that's going to be in a hybrid mode. A lot of people are not going to head back in the office like they did. They may head back in the office for 2 to 3 days a week for core meetings, but still be allowed to work remote part of the time because they can be perhaps more effective, away from the office. So I think what we're going to see is we saw a lot of new ideas, a lot of new tools, or a lot of existing tools reutilized or utilized for the first time. And now when we come back, we come back now to this new workplace with even better tools than we ever had. So, I think we're going to be, from an IT perspective, in a better space. And we figured out ways to secure ourselves. There was always that worry in the past. Oh my gosh, Johnny's going to travel. He's going to be in an airport and open up his laptop. What are we going to do? Well, you know what? Now we've had to figure out that you got to figure out how to secure that laptop wherever you're at, or the handheld device or whatever you've got. So I think we've made great strides in equipment and communications and security that will pay dividends as we move back into what everybody, I hate to say new normal because everybody said the word, nobody knew what Zoom was, but now all our aunts and uncles know what Zoom is. So everybody knows what Zoom is and everybody knows what collaboration means.
Yeah. When grandma says, let's have a Zoom call, it's a mature market.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It is
That's
the
exactly right.
chapstick of video conferencing for sure. It is.
Kleenex.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Kleenex. Exactly. It has captured that market for sure. And it's become like a verb, right? I'm going to go Zoom. I'm going to it's used in all of these different ways within the language these days. Can you tell us a little bit about, before we hopped on, you had mentioned that you've already got a good group of folks in the group, even though you've only been around for a month, a tribute to your and your colleagues' relationships in the market. Can you tell us just if you're allowed to use company names, use company names. If you're just able to tell us, if you're not allowed to use company names, just tell us like about who you have already in the group and kind of what industries and what companies those are or what they do.
You know, we're so new at this, I haven't even asked permission to use company names, but I don't know why companies would care if I use their name. But,
Sure.
but more important than the company name itself, you know, the interesting thing that I'm very happy about so far is this isn't, you would think I was from a manufacturing company, so it would be all manufacturing, and actually Haynes is a specialty metals company, and I don't think there's any other metals companies involved here yet. But anyway, the thing is, we're across the board. I mean, we've got from services companies to food manufacturing, food distribution. It's just been across the board, and all the way, you know, from East Coast to West Coast. So, you know, I've not seen it's not just, you know, I'm from Indiana. It's not just people in the Midwest by any means, and that's what I'm so happy about, because it's really already a cross-sectional look at the U.S. as far as location and industry. So
Yeah.
it's been really good in that regard.
And when we
it's
were on
really-
that
Yeah.
ERP session, it was people from all over the country,
Mhm.
northeast, out west, down south. It was everywhere. We definitely, you could
It
hear,
is.
you could hear where they were from, even if they didn't say it at the top of the
Yeah.
call. And
Right.
what was so interesting about that was exactly like you said just a couple minutes ago, was how similar their issues were, regardless of completely different size companies, completely different industries, blah, 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 blah. But somebody would bring up an issue. It's just like, oh my gosh, this was such a headache. And then that conversation kept rolling, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I dealt with that same thing. Oh, I dealt with that. We did this, it didn't work that well. And then we ultimately landed. And some of those around people issues or, you know, something like that, where it's all really the same. We're all trying to accomplish the same things. We're just doing them in different environments and have a little bit different needs per client. So I love how you guys kind of stay high level as a organization and
Right.
fly over pretty high.
And sometimes it's nice to get the perspectives, even though the problems arguably are the same and the solutions are the same. How you implement things can be completely different, and it's really nice to get the perspective of the, you know, the company that makes vanilla in Chicago versus the company that makes razors in Boston, or
Yep.
or our company that makes metal in Indiana. Again, it doesn't matter. We all get together, and it's good because you get to see somebody else's perspective or their take, and whether it's their take on something because of the area of the country they live in, or what they do manufacture, they may have a little different twist, you know, just a little different taste to how they look at a problem and how they solve it, or for example, even change management, just how the people and how people react. And so it's always nice to see just those nuances, because it can all make, you know, we can all learn from each other. You know, I've had over the years, I've had a lot of people, you know, ask me some question. I'll say, well, I don't know the answer to that. Well, you're in IT.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, I am, but I don't know everything. And, you know, the IT person that thinks they know everything is the last person you want to talk to, because
Yeah.
that's not who you want to be around.
We've talked to
not
some
gonna
of those.
Yeah, we talk. We're not going to.
We're consultants. We've talked to the guys that know everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. And one of the great things I love about this, Jeff, is just for Dustin and I being able to add more value for our clients, is to be able to introduce them into this group to where they have if they don't already, they have a peer group now that they can step into. And one of our clients, like we were talking before, they're a good sized, large construction rental company, but they don't have a formal IT department. They have a business administrator manager that kind of oversees everything. They
Right.
just brought in an IT admin to help with remote sites. And I thought, and so the big thing that they just implemented was an ERP last year. I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect for Jeff and his group, because they just implemented it. But as you're saying earlier, once you implement it, the work isn't over. It's like, how do you manage it now from start line to whenever you finish? And it's a perfect fit for them, even though they don't have a CIO, they don't have a VP of IT or director or even manager of IT. but they have IT-esque people working for them that could
Right.
use this type of group to grow their company. And they're a 9-figure company without an official IT department like you would
Wow.
think. So,
Mhm.
rental business is a good business apparently. But anyways,
Sure.
we love the fact that we can introduce them to your group, bring our clients there, add value. So anyone out there that, has people that they work with that they want to, add more value to is a great fit there too as well.
Yeah, and people like that, we're happy as well. I'm always happy to have conversations with anyone like that and provide fractional type CIO services, answer questions, help them, or find them help. Because again, if I can't help them, I'll know somebody, or if I don't, I'll find somebody that can help them get what they need. And again, the Confer Group, we don't expect anything from our IT executives as far as that goes. We haven't really talked about that, but our IT executives that join this community and their direct reports that would want to join this community or acquaintances, colleagues they have, we don't expect a dime from them. We don't want anything. The power for us will be, we will get paid from connections that will get made and solutions that get implemented, but we're not asking IT executives to pay us anything to become part of this community. There's too many places that they can go and not have to spend money to be a part of it. And we don't for 1 minute believe we're the one they should pay for. But we believe we bring more value for them than other locations will in time. So that's where we think they'll bring other people to us. So that's our goal.
Yeah, I think that safety that you guys provide of making it IT exclusive really allows everybody to kind of let their hair down and be like, hey, these are the struggles we're dealing with. This is where we're trying to head. And I've seen that camaraderie happen, just on the calls that we've been on, the ERP call, where, you don't have to, it's a different relationship than when you show up and you've got to tell your boss, things are going good enough and we've got some trouble, but we're going to power through it. This is your peers. You can just be yourself around them, come to them with the issues that you're running with, and hopefully come away not only encouraged, but with some new tools and some new direction to kind of get those things sorted. I think there's an absolute ton of value.
Yeah, I like it. And the thing is, a discussion I was just in the other day led to, it's funny because this group that you talk about, the ERP, and let me explain just so everybody knows. Yes, I said the Confer Group is new, but this ERP group's been meeting together for a couple months. And this was just the gentleman that's the global CIO for Harry's Razors and I talked, and he said, I'd just like to get a group together and just talk about ERP. Because they're in the midst of an upgrade, and he said, I'd love to get a group together just to talk about it. And so we set out to put this group together, and there wasn't a company here. This wasn't formed by a company. It was just the two of us grabbing some colleagues, and it's interesting because last month we got to a discussion about whether or not companies are going to mandate vaccines for reentry, and the folks on the call were just interested what other organizations were doing in that regard. Are you going to require it, or are you just going to make it an option to get? It's just interesting because we came there under the premise of let's talk about the rights and wrongs of implementing ERP systems, and we end up talking about whether or not we're going to mandate vaccinations. And again, it's just a group of executives that are comfortable with each other, that want to spend time together and talk, that sit in the same seats in different companies. So, we are going to continue to, create that type of setting in multiple topics with multiple people. And, these conversations will just be happening more regularly now. So.
Can you tell us what you mentioned one topic? Can you tell us what your topics are that you already have planned for anybody who's watching this? That's like, okay, I kind of like what I hear, but what do they have on the docket?
Yeah, so business intelligence is going to kick off on May 11th, like I told you. We're going to do another 4-part, which is 4 monthly sessions, another 4-part on disaster recovery and business continuity, which again, it's an ongoing mission for everybody. It will start on June 24th. July 21st, we will start another series, 6-part series on ERP implementations, because ERP is such a broad topic. We really can't handle it in 4 sessions. And then July 28th, we're going to start another one on cybersecurity. And each one of those will have a sponsoring company. It's obviously going to sponsor for the Confer group and come in. But the sponsors, I'm being very careful with my colleagues that are working with the Confer group. We're making sure that companies that we contract with for these type series aren't going to be there to sell any wares. They're there to be subject matter experts, and they're there to talk at 10,000 feet as well. And you know what? If people in the group hear of them, like what they have to say, and engage with them later, that's great. But that's a soft sell. We're not going to be there doing product demos. We're there to talk about these topics and the different phases of really these topics. Because everything like cybersecurity, I mean, it's one thing to do a site scan and find out where your vulnerabilities are, but we all know that half the breaches that happen come from internal. We know that some, a big percentage of those are unintentional. So the bottom line on cybersecurity, it doesn't matter what 10 tools you may implement in your company and what kind of staggered or safety net type of structure you build. The bottom line is the end users and the training. So we're going to talk all the way from what products, types of products you want to buy, at what level, what automation you may have with regard to those kind of topics, but then also education. So we're going to just talk through these topics in multiple sessions and have the opportunity for people to get together. But like I said, Dustin, other than that, I think, RPA is a huge topic. Cloud's a huge topic. Collaboration tools, IP telephony. There's many different areas that I want to go in, and we're going to have not the same, we'll have different people in each of these sessions in our community because they'll be interested in different things. So that's where we're heading. So we have a lot on our plate, a lot coming up, but more to define. And again, I want to listen to our community too, and the roadmaps they're giving us to really define our future, because our future needs to be based on what people want to talk about, not what we want to talk about.
Yeah, and if a series isn't going that someone has interest in, so say it's IP telephony or anything else cloud that hasn't been started yet, you have the LinkedIn group that they can go into and say, hey, I'm having some issues with X, Y, and Z. What should I do about a hybrid cloud? Should I go hybrid? Should I do colo? Should we do all these different things? And so even if if a series isn't going, they can still go to the LinkedIn group. They can still find their peers. And that's the after hours type of setting where people can go and have chats with peer to peer.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So we're trying to, again, we're new. We've just laid the groundwork here. So we're basically still laying the foundation. We're under a month old. But again, we've already have several things in place, partnerships and again, just to talk a minute about partnerships, we're trying to partner with companies that can also add value as far as I don't necessarily want to have a partnership with a company that makes a specific router. I want to have partnerships with companies that know which of the companies that know all the companies that make routers, that can help the company know which brand they should buy based on their layout, based on their how many remote sites or whatever the things may be. I don't want to, we're not going to get the point that we recommend a specific BI tool or recommend a specific router or recommend a specific SD-WAN vendor. We want to point people to partners we have that know how to answer that better than us.
Yeah, and similarly to the way the group is set up, is to collaborate, is to engage and see what's working for other people. So if you had one provider that's in there is pushing their Kool-Aid only, it kind of takes away from that consultative group approach. Absolutely.
That's right. And like I mentioned too, I jokingly talk about the mistakes I've made, but yeah, I tell you, mistakes made are of huge value. We all make them. We've all bought the wrong product. We've all implemented things incorrectly over the years, and there's incredible value from making mistakes. And anybody, again, you have to look at yourself and laugh and say, hey, it's all right. Yeah. It's part of it, and you live and learn. And if you can share those mistakes with others and save somebody, that's nice. It's super to be able to do that. They're still going to make a mistake, even if you tell them what you did wrong. They're going to do something wrong too. and that's
Yeah.
okay. But we all learned from that, and we can help each other. So again, this is just a way to help each other.
I love where you guys are at. I mean, you're saying all the right things. I'm super excited about this community that you guys are building. Just because the organization's been around just for less than a month, you guys have all been doing this in a different capacity, similar capacity in previous jobs and previous lives. And you already had that ERP session before the organization was actually had a name. So you guys, I just want to give all of our listeners some credence. This is not something Jeff hatched the idea over the weekend, and we've got him on here 5 days in. This is a well thought out plan. These are experts in the industry. It's just a new spin on it, and it really is like a huge value to IT executives. I'd highly recommend anybody listening to this and any of my clients to join. We'll be sending more people over as I'm meeting up with more and more folks as the pandemic's allowing us to get out and about. So you'll be seeing a steady stream of emails coming from me with introductions here in the near future.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. And please, if anybody, there's not a huge presence on the site yet, but you can go to the confergroup.com and see the founders. I want you to see my teammates. Very proud of the team.
Absolutely.
And could not have done this. Really none of us could have done it without each other. So it requires all four of us to be successful, and we're excited to get started. And we also are excited to grow, because we know we will grow. We'll grow from here, but you'll be able to see who's involved with me in getting this thing off the ground, and be able to see the upcoming events as well. So
that is perfect. So the confergroup.com, and Jeff, the way I look at it, this is decades in the making, right? This is like Dustin said, this wasn't a plan that you hatched on the dock last night thinking about what should I do next. This is taking your decades of experience and your partners and the founders' experience together to make this group. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I know we're going to have you on again, because you have some great contacts. You have some great people that other people on our podcast can learn from. So, but for today, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for joining, Dustin. Always good having you on, bud. I love it.
Thanks.
Always.
Right. Thank you,
Alex,
gentlemen.
Dustin, thank you guys so much.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.